you switch to you.
There lies a certain sanctuary neath the field of green, where the rhythm of the source resonates with you and me. But multi-corporations are doctoring the pulse with hate and sun creation. We're ingesting what results. Why do they hype these GM foods? Profits can be genetically improved. Given the right, you know they'll choose to put profit before you. Mother Nature is the essence, the perfect harmony, the purity, the balance, mind and body need. From the cradle, her life flows through the blood of nations. Though what happens to the river with the source manipulated? Why do they hype these GM foods? Profits can be genetically improved. Given the right, you know they'll choose to put profit before you. We live in a world of technology. Look all around, how many bugs do you see? On mutants on the blueprint, tight controlling hands. Critters eating cash crops propagate the land. As new strains in the food chain lead to pesticide, the ark's left its mooring, rivers on the rise. Some things you can't foresee. Scarecrow wears a lab coat and reapers collect their share. Circling politicians see riches from the air. In this monetary madness of temptation and treason, can you see a sweet harvest in a version of Eden? Why do they hype these GM foods? Profits can be genetically improved. Given the right, you know they'll choose to put profit before you. Why do they hype these GM foods? Profits can be genetically improved. Given the right, you know they'll choose to put profit before you.
Welcome to Illegal Knowledge. Are we on now? Yay. There's always something that happens first. It's like, okay, I got to do this and do this and do this. And do we have comment? Yeah, there it is. Okay, great. Anyway, this is Michael. Welcome to Illegal Knowledge, episode 502. Can we get the door? Thanks. Sorry. Yeah. The episode is 502, Just Say No to GMO. GMO, I'm referring to genetically modified organisms, as in what they put in stuff that you eat. Now, before I do that, I just wanted to say that we'll be doing, there's shows every month. This is Legal Knowledge. It's on every third Friday of the month. It's on live. You can call in. Let me put there's a Twitter and also some phone numbers that you can call. If you want to call in, I have the phones ready. The other thing that I do here have is a computer where I can receive tweets. So go ahead and call in with your comments or questions. And I wanted to talk about a few things before we started. I also want to say hi, Kyler. And first of all, I want to direct you. Let me get this to switch over here. Right there is the webpage for the show, and and I have a whole bunch of things listed in here about what we're talking about. The first thing that I wanted to show is that there's a petition that I'd like everyone to sign. It's regarding voter suppression. The idea is that there shouldn't be any voter suppression. It's the Democratic governors have a. Okay, why is that not happening? Control tab. Okay, there we go. Here you go. There's a petition here. If you want to go up there and sign it, the link is again on the website right here. Click to sign the petition to stop voter suppression. If you could all go ahead and sign that, please, I'd really appreciate it. The next thing I saw in the news the other day, there apparently the Boy Scouts of America have not been doing so good so lately. What's going on here is that they basically there's been pedophilia pretty much going on in the Boy Scouts for the since they started, and what the LA Times did is they brought to the surface this they apparently had an internal list of people who had molested children, and the list was to keep them out of scouting, and so they didn't report them to the police or anything like that, but they did at least keep an internal list, and they let them quietly resign. If you want to check out the article, it's very disturbing that yeah, they have a paper trail of abuse, and what happened? Well, they almost all the cases were not reported. They were reported to the scouts, but not to authorities. And then what happened is that they didn't take very good care of the list, and so they allowed the people that were on the list to go to other towns and join scouts and molest children again. So this is it's just awful. It's like Sandusky. On the record, I was a Boy Scout. I never had any. There was none of that going on in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So but this is just very disturbing. I also want to get to there is a thing that happened. I'm sure you all heard about this with Mitt Romney. The fact that he's basically has the utmost disdain for 47% of the populace. The thing there was that he was I guess Jimmy Carter's grandson was filming an event in which Romney was attending, and he was saying something about how that people don't pay taxes, and he thinks that 47%, just because they don't pay the income tax, you have the payroll tax, you have your FICA and Medicare, and everybody pays that. Everybody who gets a W-2 pays that. So so the fact that people pay taxes flies in the face of whatever Romney was saying. Now, what I take away from this all is that Romney was talking to a bunch of people that are his supporters, the people who he wants to get money from, who he wants to get money, and he was telling that crowd what they wanted to hear. Now, the thing about that is that that's what they want to hear. They're believing their own convoluted, perverted crap. These business elites, the elite cabal that I was talking about last time in 501, they think like this, and they're believing their own bullshit. All right, and it's just not. It's okay. This goes back to the whole same thing in the Mark Twain, the thing that I read the last time as well. The whole mendicants toward your alms, yet they have an air toward you of master toward beggar, you know, but yet they're the ones who are getting supported by the people, by the fact that business gets all kinds of you know, corporate welfare, subsidies, whatever you want to call it, and they don't. They somehow think that they're the masters when in fact it is the population that actually is supporting them all. They think like this. And Romney thinks like this. Now, the thing about Romney that I did want to say, I am, obviously, I've put my support toward Gary Johnson. I was running for president earlier in the year. Anyone who wants to vote for me, please instead vote for the Libertarian Gary Johnson, okay? He's a great guy. There's a website link somewhere on my site. So the thing is with if you're not going to vote for Gary Johnson, you're basically throwing your vote away. Because either Romney or Obama are going to win. Unless everyone stops throwing their votes away toward the establishment candidates and say votes for someone who will actually change the country for the better, like Gary Johnson. Now, the thing is, if you're going to vote for either Obama or Romney, at least vote for the known evil, okay? Don't vote for the unknown evil, which is Romney, okay? Plus, I can see it already. If Romney gets the presidency, it's going to be Bush again times 10. W again times 10, all right? So just whatever you do, don't vote for Romney. Please, if you're thinking about voting for Romney, please reconsider and vote for Gary Johnson, all right? Gary Johnson is a libertarian, really good guy. Just type in Gary Johnson, Johnson. He was the governor of New Mexico before Bill Richardson. Anyway, speaking of governors who lose, Scott Walker, yeah, he's the guy from Wisconsin who won he was the all anti-labor guy who tried to get rid of, anyway, that law that he had to force through with various specious measures when half the Democratic caucus was gone, and it went through the Senate and Wisconsin State House anyway. Got overturned. It's completely unconstitutional to, and the reason why, and this is great, you can't protect one class of workers while simultaneously not protecting another class. And this is, yeah, that's what, it's, so you can't, it's unequal protection under law. You have to have equal protection. And so you can't have, you know, ask me teachers for the state and then private charter teachers who are perhaps, or at least have the ability to unionize. You can't have it like that. No, won't work. Which leads me to think that what they're going to try next is to remove unions entirely, but, well, we'll see. And see, the thing is, people these days are paying attention now to the whole Hegelian dialectic, where you create a crisis, like the economic crisis, and then you blame the victim for, you know, like the teachers or the 47% for what happened. And the thing is, people are figuring this out. You can't solve the problem by punishing the victim anymore. Sorry, governors, but that's not going to work. All you want to do is you want to make money on privatization of public services, and you want to privatize them so you can bankroll that. No go. Does not happen. No. We know what you're up to, and we're not going to let that happen. All right. So, with that off my chest, let's get on to something that I care even more about, which is genetically modified foods. So, yeah. All right. Let me start with a little story here. Back in the 1970s, I was growing up in Lancaster, and near Landisville, Centerville, Salonga, Landis, that area, and East Enfield Township. And we would always go to the local farm. My parents would drive up the hill and down the hill and across the railroad tracks and over to the farm. And it was like about a mile and a half or something. We go to this little farm over on State Road and Colebrook, I guess. And we get corn and we get whatever. I mean, they like strawberries. You literally go directly to the farm. Okay, I mean, this is Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so okay, a little rural. But I mean, anyway. But we would be able to go directly to the farm and get our produce directly from the farm. That farm did not use pesticides or chemical pesticides, maybe organic pesticides, maybe some. I certainly know, because you can tell by the smell, that they're using organic fertilizer, because you could smell the cow dung. They were definitely using organic fertilizer. They did not have genetically modified anything. What back then they did is they had hybridization. What they do is they cross-pollinate crops. So they took some crops that were great and they saved the seed from those, the ones that were the tallest or the most fruitful or whatever you want to call it. And they'd save the seed from those. And let's say the corn. Let's use corn as an example. And so what they do is, if they had a couple crops that were like that, they would just, spread those seeds all in together, and that's what they would plant, okay? And so when they're planting, again, for the new season, what would happen is those plants would then spring out of the seeds, and they would cross-pollinate. And so what happens is you get a stronger variety, and that's called genetic hybridization. And that has been going on for centuries. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is going into the cells themselves and injecting DNA where it doesn't belong, okay? Because the plants can figure out how to make their own DNA right when they cross-pollinate. This is people going into the DNA itself and, say, adding something like a mosquito gene or a bacteria gene, or a fish gene, or even a human gene into a plant or an animal or something. Okay, really? No. Okay, if that doesn't just immediately on its face sound completely wrong to you, okay, but that's what's going on. Now, what do you think happens? Well, that's the thing. What do you think happens when we do all of that to our plants, let's say our plant's genetic structure, okay? What happens to the plant then? Well, you see, the thing is, we don't know. Like, we literally have no idea. What we have to do is we have to try it and then see what happens. And then sometimes you get a plant. And sometimes you get this weird, deformed, gnarly-looking thing. All right, and obviously that's not the one that you want. Now, okay, I'm totally fine with keeping that confined to the laboratory, and let's see, maybe someday we can get it right, all right? And maybe we can be totally foolproof on this. Here's the thing. Nature has had, what, 4.5 billion years, 4,500 million years to get this right. And we're trying it in the space of, what, 15 years? No. Okay, so that right there, there's an issue with how we're proceeding. And what we're doing, this is the problem. We're letting these genetically modified foods right out into the food supply. Okay, how do we let that happen? Okay, agribusiness, all right. Way back in the 70s, all right, when I was going to that farm, right? I mean, before I think that farm is now a subdivision, all right? And so is probably a lot of the area where there used to be farming in Pennsylvania because of population growth. And it is, it's the East Coast. It's right out 50, 75 miles out of Philly, I guess. And so what you end up with is you end up with farmers that the mom and pop farms sort of go away. They get bought out by the big farms, the agribusiness farms, like ADM or something like that. Or any one of them. There's like tons of them. ConAgra, you know. Anyway, they get bought out and they get made into corporate farms. What doesn't get bought out sometimes, they, you know, the fact of it is, I mean, if you can sell, you know, say 160 acres of farmland for several, you know, what, the price of the tracts of the lots for housing? I mean, that's what? That's at least a couple million, at least. I mean, versus sitting there farming it? I mean, where you're making maybe 40 a year, 40 grand a year profit, maybe zero, you know? I mean, that 5-6 million looks pretty good, you know? So, I mean, but we need more mom and pop farms. We can't let all this go to agribusiness. Now, what agribusiness was doing is to make even more of a profit. They and some other companies like Novartis, Syngenta, and particularly Monsanto, they were coordinating with you know, with ConAgra and the other ADM and all those to make a, well, the idea is that you're going to make something that costs less, works better, requires less chemical pesticides. That's the idea. However, what ended up happening is that basically the best part about it was that it helped Monsanto's bottom line, and they now have 90% of the world's GM food seed supply. That in itself is 10% of the total agricultural production. Genetically modified is about 10%. See, the other thing that I guess they wanted to do is they wanted to give more choice, because what we had back then in the 70s was seasonal things. We had whatever the farmer was growing, you know. It's that simple. We had, you know, in the summer there was corn, in the winter, there was that. But I'll tell you what, we didn't starve by any stretch of the imagination. So here's the thing. There are some politicians today that accuse other politicians of wanting to form a society of dependency, you know, like where you're dependent on the government. And the thing is, having independent food production would go a long way to making sure that you're not dependent on the government. And I mean independent food production, like everyone should have a garden in their backyard, that kind of, yeah. Or maybe a local co-op grow farmer area thing where you can, whatever, community farming, something like that. That would be great. Here's the false choice that they're giving you, though. They're saying, would you like this kind of GM food or this kind of GM food? Now, wait. We can't have a choice of foods. No, but we can have oh my God, there's so many foods that you can go to the grocery store and eat. However, the problem is that a good percentage of them, especially processed food, about 90% of processed food has at least some GM ingredients in it. So you got all this choice now, okay? Because, you know, before it was kind of seasonal, you had whatever was there. Now you have all this choice, but it's a false choice because the only thing that you can choose from is genetically modified food. All right. So so basically, genetically modified crops are kind of taking over the world here. I want to go back over to the web here real quick. I have an article here on, let's see, where we go. Here's one thing about Romney. You should check this one out. This shows you who pays the taxes. This is the 47% over here. But this is the one right down here. I wrote an article about all of this, about how you know, genetic hybridization is something that we've always been doing. However, GM foods are terribly scary, and maybe we shouldn't do any of that. So if you all want to read this, it's a really good article in my opinion. I know I wrote it, so of course it's a good article. Haha. But check that out. The other thing is that over here on the website, there's a whole bunch of things. We're going to go down through here and talk about all these. Now, what I'd first like to get to is this one, the second one right here. There are a bunch of here. Let me just bring it up. That would be Control-Shift-Tab. Okay, there we go. These are the things that contain genetically modified portions. This is the entire list. Okay, now this, as I said, this is up at Non-GMO Shopping Guide. I have a link to it right there on the page right here. It's this second link right there. And then also up top, there's a Non-GMO Shopping Guide up in the C right there in the very first part. All right, so, but what I can do here is show you really simply what basically there are a few things that have been, the actual things that they went in to the actual plant or animal or whatever, and what they did, I can tell you, it's a relatively short list. That looks like a really awful long list, but it's because all those things are made out of these very few ingredients and these very few plants. So here, let me give you the list, and I have it written right here. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, corn. That's unfortunate. Corn. Regular old sweet corn, canola oil, modified cornstarch, corn. Monsanto made Frankencorn. I'm sure you've probably heard the term Frankencorn. Anyway, yeah, corn. Don't eat corn because 94% of it is genetically modified. If you're going to eat corn, make sure you get it organically grown and non-GM. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, that sucks. I'll go through the list a little bit more. I want to just talk about this first here because you see, the GMO crops are like taking over the world, not because they're better, but it's because of companies like Monsanto and Novartis and Syngenta, how you even pronounce it. They're using, back in, let me see, what they're doing is they're controlling the seed supply, the genetically modified foods, and the pesticide. Okay, they're companies that produce all three things. It's a three-pronged approach to stab you. They're producing the seed, the genetically modified seed. They're controlling the seed, and they're controlling the pesticides. These companies, and I'll talk about Monsanto in a bit, but they're basically they're doing it for their market share and their profits, and it's not about, you know, being helpful to people. It's about just profit mongering and getting money, essentially. Okay, now how they're doing this? They actually use a gold gun that they strap the new genetic things into, and they shoot the little particles of gold with DNA into the cells, and that's how they do. It's like, yeah, okay, so 75 million acres in 2000 now, or that's in the U.S. in 2000. 109 million acres in the world in 2000 has gone to 395 million acres in 2000 it was only in 4 countries. Now it's in 29 countries. GM foods are now in the top. The top 10 are U.S. obviously is number 1. Argentina, Canada, weird. China, not surprisingly. Also Brazil, India, Paraguay, Pakistan, South Africa, and Uruguay round out the top 10. That's about 80% of where all the GM foods come from. A 94-fold increase in hectareage from 1.7 million hectares in '96 to 160 million hectares in 2011. They are now the fastest adopted crop technology in the history of modern agriculture. What usually goes on when things get adopted this quickly is that people have a thing called the precautionary principle. Okay, and that means maybe we should make sure it's okay before we eat it. Right. Okay. Well, that has gone out the window. All right. So what's going on here is that the FDA is supposed to determine food safety, and the EPA and the FDA are supposed to do that. You know, this stuff could be allergenic or something. But at the request of Monsanto and all the other companies, they've had since Reagan, and then going through George Herbert Walker Bush, and then even Clinton. Clinton was, oh my God, no regulation, no. I can't do his voice, so I'm not even going to try. No, and then Dumya, obviously no regulation. And it continues even through Obama. They were not regulating it. In fact, there's a story there, and I'm going to get to it. It involves this guy, Michael Taylor. So what's going on is for the last 10 years, they've been taking over, about 10, 15 years, since 96, they've been taking, I guess, what, 16 years, they've been taking over. What happens is that they have, Greg Glass called a thing, entitled called the Bush cycle, where you have this revolving door of, you go from the private to the corporate, or I mean the private to the governmental, to the private to the governmental, to the, and so you end up with people who worked for a company now working in the government for something that they used to oversee in the private sector. And where do you think their allegiances lie when they're here governing what? Okay, so this gets me to Michael Taylor. He was one of their lawyers, Monsanto's lawyers, way back, and then he got put into the undersecretary kind of position of the in the FDA, and during his tenure, he was a lawyer. He wrote the policy when he was at the FDA, saying that the FDA doesn't need to. They do this partial equivalence thing. It's completely backwards. It's like if you have a genetically modified food and it looks like it, well, it must be the same. No, at the genetic level, it's different. That would make it not at all the same. Anyway, but that's the policy under Michael Taylor that the FDA has adopted. This was back in, what, 1994? Okay, so then after that, he went on to become like a VP of Monsanto, okay? Now, guess where he is now? Guess who appointed him? Obama. Yes, our thieving President Obama. No, he takes away our rights, and now he puts in as the head of the FDA, the food czar now is Michael Taylor, VP of Monsanto, the writer of the policy on the FDA. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So what do you think is going to happen? More GM foods, less supervision, more money for Monsanto. Thank you very much, Michael Taylor. I saw a documentary. I want to get to that also. Let me, there's the, there's this thing called The World According to Monsanto. It's a documentary. He's actually on there saying, well, he doesn't even agree with the policy that he wrote. Because, well, he wrote it to make a profit for Monsanto, but he doesn't think that that's actually how we should do business in the FDA. What? Oh, you get me? All right. He was being interviewed. So what's he going to say? Yes, I'm evil and I want you all to die? Oh, wait, that would be more accurate. All right. All right, so anyway. So the thing is, genetically modified organisms, genetically modified food, the other ones that are not, that I didn't talk about, you got alfalfa, which is normally a feedstock. You got soybeans, so anything soy, soy lectin, sugar beets, so in other words, the things where you get your granulated sugar, your white sugar, yeah, that's what sugar beets, right. In other words, anything other than pure cane sugar. If you get cane sugar, pure cane sugar, not GM. Any other sugar, genetically modified. Anything with soy in it, soy milk, okay, genetically modified. Papayas, cotton, cottonseed oil. I said corn and canola oil, also yellow squash, some kinds of yellow squash. If you're going to get yellow squash, just get organic yellow squash. A couple kinds of golden rice. And then also in China, there's a company in China, I don't know the name of it because it's Chinese, I don't know how you pronounce it. There's a company in China that's making tomatoes, but they have to be from China. There's no company, Monsanto isn't making genetically modified tomatoes. That's it. That's actually it. Corn, alfalfa, soybeans, sugar beets, papayas, cotton, yellow squash, golden rice, and Chinese tomatoes. So there's like 9 different things right there. That's it. However, you make high fructose corn syrup. Hello, that's in everything. That's corn. That corn's genetically modified. Corn. Yes, corn. Yeah, I know. Anyway, check the website for the full list. I'm going to have to hurry up because we're getting kind of close on time here. Got about 20 minutes left. I have the thing up here for, I'm going to put the other one up for the phone number if you want to call in. Call in. You all know the Twitter address. You can go to the website. Okay, I'm going to breeze through this really quickly because I'm running out of time. All right, so what's going on here is that Monsanto is basically using the United States. What's going on is that Taylor and all are using their position in the revolving door policy to force the United States to accept GM at face value with no testing. Okay, now what's going on worldwide is that Monsanto is telling people in the U.S. government, like Obama, or like every president since Reagan, Republican and Democrat both, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, all 5 of them have been pushing other countries throughout since the last, 32 years, have been pushing other countries like India, to accept Monsanto's Frankencorn, Frankenfoods, any of that, yes. So that's how it's spreading. Monsanto even, here's the other thing. Monsanto is a particularly awful one at this. They're using patents. They can patent life, you see, because you can't patent a seed that grows naturally. But if you did something to it, like change a gene here and there, and who knows what that does, but okay, whatever. You change a gene here and there, you get a patent on it, and then nobody else can take it's profit right there. That's how they're getting their profit. And they've even written in an internal memo that Monsanto had written that they would rather kill 10,000 people in Anniston, Georgia, which they did by dumping their toxic sludge and dioxins in Anniston, Georgia, than lose literally, and I quote, then lose $1 in profits. They'd rather kill 10,000 people in Anniston, Georgia. To them, are worth $1. Actually, $1 is more than the lives and the livelihoods of 10,000. Now, once no one can get non-genetically modified seed, and Monsanto can ask any amount of money for their product. See, right now they're charging about 4 times the amount for their seed. And then they're charging extra $15 an acre. It's like an acreage charge. It's like however many acres you have. In addition to the fact that you have to pay more for their seed, you also have to pay Monsanto $15 an acre to even plant it. And then not only that, you can't save it. They even have a technology called the Terminator gene. Technology is maybe a bad word. But they have this thing, a Terminator gene, that makes it sterile and also cross-pollinates to other varieties, say, of corn or something. So that if it cross-pollinates between non-GM corn and GM corn, okay, the Terminator gene will cross-pollinate to the non-GM corn, thereby making the non-GM corn sterile, which means that you won't get seeds that can plant more plants off the non-GM corn that got infected with the Terminator gene from the genetically modified corn. That means that we're going to not have any seeds for anything, anywhere in the world, unless Monsanto gives it to us. Silent weapons for silent wars. If you own the food supply, do you think you can control the populace? I have yet to do a show on water. That's also this is coming up. Anyway, okay, let's talk about the history of Monsanto because we got a little bit of time left here. This was a chemical company that was started about 1909, so 103 years ago. It's still a chemical company, by the way. It was started by one of the members of the Knights of Malta. Yes, the Illuminati. Big surprise there. John Francis Queenie. He was a close warm personal friend of J.P. Morgan, who you might know from U.S. Steel, or maybe just the bank. They originally made saccharin that was put in Coca-Cola, right? Saccharin has turned out to be cancer-causing, a carcinogen. They made DDT. You see where this is going? They made Agent Orange. They made aspartame, NutraSweet, right? Also, carcinogen. All of these so far. I've listed 4 carcinogens. This company makes cancer, basically, is what this company makes. It's a chemical company. PCBs, okay, the weird oily plastic things that are carcinogens. Okay, there we go. All right. Roundup. Roundup. Their most famous product, their most successful product, other than those little red LEDs, which makes me wonder about those little red LEDs. All right. Roundup. The thing that you spray that kills all the weeds, right? You think it's a carcinogen. What they did is when they couldn't make DDT anymore, because that was, oh my God, that's DDT. You can't make that. Then they started making Agent Orange with this 3,4-T or something like that. That same chemical is what's in Roundup. The same chemical that's in Agent Orange is in Roundup. Big surprise. Then they're also making Bt toxin. Now this is their first GM thing. Okay, Bt toxin, what that is, I go down and find it here. I wrote, oh, here it is. It's Bacillus thuringiensis. I have no idea. Thuringiensis. Pronounce that. Bacillus thuringiensis or something. I have no idea. Anyway, what it is a bacteria. It's naturally occurring. It's found in soils, outside plants, all right, in soil. And what they did is they took this bacteria and they injected it into the DNA of the plant. Now, what the bacteria does is it well, it's kind of gross actually. What it does is if you ingest this bacteria, let's say you're an insect, okay, and say when you inject when you inject the thing into the genes, what the plant can do is it can produce this bacteria as it can produce the proteins which produce the bacteria, which then kill the insect. What happens to the insect though? The bacteria. What happens to the insects and the animals, whatever? It goes into their stomachs and it alters their DNA. It also alters the insect's DNA, so they become miniature Bt toxin factories. What Bt toxin actually does is it essentially digests the bacteria basically digests your stomach lining and intestinal lining, and it turns it kind of into goo, and then when it makes enough, because the bacteria keep, it makes more and more, and you basically blow up. It pop like that. Yeah. Really gross, really gross. So it's conceivable that if you eat enough corn chips, say, that are genetically modified with Bt toxin, which they are, by the way, your stomach bacteria will start producing Bt toxin, thereby causing your stomach to explode, just like the insect stomachs. Okay, this obviously will be insanely painful and very certain death. I guess somebody at Monsanto really has it out for everyone that eats their product. Let me get back up to where I was here. What do we got? 15 minutes. All right. Well, actually, a little less. We have about 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to call in, now would be the time. Okay, so so what's going on with Monsanto here? They also made Celebrex, by the way. Just in case you take Celebrex, you may want to stop. And now they're trying to make a thing called 2,4-D, okay? Now, this is another thing. This is like the 3,4-T thing or whatever that's called. It's basically another, what's going on is when you genetically modify something so that you get a resistance. Like if you have a bacteria like Bt toxin, things build up a resistance to it eventually. So you get these super bugs and these super weeds. Bt toxin is an insecticide. Roundup is a herbicide. Okay, it kills plants. Herbicide, insecticide kills bugs. Right? Okay. What happens is both of these are the Roundup, the bugs from the Bt toxin, and plants from, you got super weeds. That's the song, the band that did the front side super weed. Yeah, that's why it's that. That are resistant to Roundup. So you can spray Roundup on them, or you can have your Roundup ready crops, and they're just, it's going to grow. Oh, that's the other thing. Roundup kills everything, right? It's like Agent Orange. Well, it is Agent Orange. It's just labeled Roundup. It kills everything. In order for, what they did is they put a resistant gene into crops, into soy and things like that. So you could spray Roundup on them and it wouldn't kill the soy. What it does to the soy is a whole other question. What's going on is you got Roundup-resistant weeds and bugs, so they're making this 2,4-D, which is basically a combination of Bt toxin and Roundup put together in this thing, 2,4-D, which basically kills anything. Kills everything. Bugs, animals, dead. And they're putting that into food. Okay, just so you understand. Okay, so without testing, we are the human guinea pigs, all right? Monsanto has a history of cover-ups, bribes, false advertising, fake scientific reports and data manipulation and suppression, litigious bullying against farmers and other professionals like Perry Schmeiser, who was, he was not growing Monsanto's crops, but it blew in from a neighboring field, and Monsanto sued him for having their crops and won. He didn't want their crops. Basically, Monsanto trespassed, forced them to have it, and then sued him for not paying Monsanto for shit he didn't want. All right? Yeah, what is up with that? Monsanto uses PR tricks, public relations tricks. They try to muddy the waters of the debate. There is clearly no debate here. We need to test genetically modified foods. We can't let them go out untested. There should be no debate. Once they're properly tested and vetted and it all works, which I doubt it's going to, but let's just say it does. Let's say you get a genetically modified strain that doesn't somehow break down or turn into some other weird Franken thing and whatever. Let's just say that happens. Okay, fine. Okay, great. But you gotta test it first. You can't just spring it on the public without any testing. They're muddying the waters about the dangers of GM foods. They're saying, oh, what? They're tested. Look, they're tested. You're eating them. They've been tested. Wait a minute. No testing means. Okay, so anyway, this second thing, third thing here, there's a new article that came out about, and let's talk about testing. They've done some tests. The new GMO study. Rats fed lifetime of genetically modified corn grow tumors. 70% of females die early. Read the article. I don't have enough time to talk about it fully. Okay. Monsanto can't pass any health and environmental safety testing of any of their products. That's why Reagan and Bush and Clinton and Dumya and Obama allowed even more. Obama obviously appointed the Vice President, Michael Taylor, to the FDA, to the top position in the FDA. Monsanto now owns most GMO producing companies outside China, basically a monopoly. I said the other two are Novartis and Syngenta. What's going on is they're also using. Okay, what's going on with genetic? Here's the basic. I mean, we know what the problems are. you got transgenics going on. You got genetic contamination. You have unpredictability in DNA and in crop yield. You have genetic instability. You have spontaneous mutation. It can turn into anything at any time. It produces carcinogens, tumors. It also causes diabetes, hepatitis. You have this rapid communication of genetic pollution from wind and from, it's inevitable. And Monsanto's even doing their best to take their corn into Mexico, down to Osaka, where corn originated, and they're polluting the original corn on the planet. The very first place the corn was on the planet, Monsanto's intentionally, it's not allowed in Mexico, but they're taking it there anyway, and they're polluting the corn. They're just dropping seeds by the side of the road, and it grows, and then it pollutes, and like 54% of Osaka's of their crop yield is now genetically modified, not by their own design. All right, this is very bad. I talked about the Terminator seed. Also, what's going on is that there's an increase in use of water for all this. So you got to use more water for the GM crops than you do. We have the whole, okay. You got soil infertility caused by the Bt toxin because of soil decay in roots, in the plant roots, and that also can cause resistance in insects and weeds. Well, if you were a weed and you got all this Roundup resistant DNA mixed up with your DNA, you would not actually be resistant to Roundup either, because as we're seeing that's not. Now, Syngenta is producing a thing called atrazine. It's a new herbicide. It's not Roundup. This is leading to birth defects, water contamination, cancer, endocrine disruption, human infertility in both men and women, and hermaphrodite frogs. It's banned in the European Union. Most GM crops are banned in the European Union, but they're trying to get their inroads. The problems, again, the three big ones is corn, cotton. There's suicides in India from cotton farmers. It's like thousands of times. It's something that they do, I guess, or something. And rashes and weird diseases with people who come into contact with touching the cotton. Soy, you have poverty and loss of indigenous lands in South America. Again, rashes, odd infections. The wildlife that comes into contact with the Bt toxin just die off. Like if they get in the water that there's a Roundup, they die. Again, what's going on is you have the loss of these farmers, an increase in poverty, and a loss of the local economy, the rural agriculture economy. And as a result, people are going into the cities, and then you have a loss of your urban economy as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I have very few minutes left. So what's going on here is I'm going to talk about solutions. How do we stop this? I'm not going to take any calls because I don't have enough time, and I don't think there's any calls anyway. Market forces can stop this. We can effectively stop GMOs in the U.S. and most of the world outside China by stopping Monsanto. And how do you stop Monsanto? You don't buy their stuff, all right? Monsanto is a publicly traded company. It's MON.N. Do not invest in it. If you have investments in it, pull your investments in it. Check your broker, ask them. Market volatility is putting smaller farmers out of business. We can end this volatility by stabilizing the monetary supplies, stabilizing food stocks, eating less meat, eliminating speculative trading on food commodity markets, and supporting and buying from small farms, reducing, and that will help reduce climate change, carbon emissions. The market valuation of genetically modified crops is falling due to their untestedness and susceptibility. There's a higher value now on non-genetically modified foods. We can maybe use GM corn to produce biofuels, but what we really need to do is we need to use algal oil to produce that, because it sequesters the carbon. So does planting when you plant crops that are if you use a non-chemical fertilizer, that also helps a lot. I don't have very much time. I'll tell you what, I'm going to post the rest of this up on the web, and you can go there and check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and close this show. So that's it for tonight. I'm sorry I ran out of time. Go to the website. I'll have all the rest of the information up. There's a lot of good solutions. I'm sorry I didn't get to them. And we're over on... How do we get back to the video?
You can go back to the DVD?
Yeah.
And you go ahead and push DVD on.
Well, DNA, it's natural. It's the building block of life. And when the good Lord put it together, you know, I think he did it all right. He made lots of different organisms, a complex web of life. Each one dependent on another, and so the circle it closed up tight. But then along came a man and a microscope, and he separated the genes. And when he put them all back together, he made lots of strange, unnatural things. And now food crops grow on the ocean floor, cows that grow on trees. Now the ranchers gaze while their oysters graze on grass that depends on a hormone spray. In our genetically modified world, in our genetically modified world. Well, now the corporations, they will tell you it's about feeding people in need. But it isn't really very hard to see that it's really just about corporate greed. They patent the food in the third world, and then they watch their profits grow. And the third world people can't say no. They're being blackmailed by the WTO. And now their food crops grow on the ocean floor, cows they grow on trees. Now the ranchers gaze while their oysters graze on grass that depends on a hormone spray. In our genetically modified world, in our genetically modified world. When the corporation's own creation, with who shall we worship then? With the First United Church of Syngenta, or Monsanto of the Nazarene? Of course we'll always have the Taoists, but they're now D-O-W Dow. They'll be popular with all except the population of Bhopal, because their chickens now only lay export crops. The sacred cows grow on trees. Now the ranchers gaze while their oysters graze on grass that depends on a hormone spray that travels down the river into the bay, where bioaccumulates every day till our ecosystem's in